You know, when Obi-Wan Kenobi came out, I was just relieved to enjoy a Star Wars thing for the most part. This this is probably the first time since, fittingly enough, Rogue One, that what I got was pretty much exactly what I wanted. Andor. When I say got what I want, I mean from Star Wars specifically. I know I'm running late on these first 3 episodes, but I had a really busy week last week, and I'm finally I've restructured my week and how I'm moving forward, so to hopefully be able to start to catch up and get ahead of things. But now that I have done this, I'm going to try and get episode by episode reviews out now that I'm caught up, just barely before the next episode comes out. But to explain my initial comment, getting exactly what I wanted. What I wanted was not super specific. I didn't have specific desires of exact plot points, specific character. Like, I had very vague wants from this. I wanted a focus on the people living in this world. Ground level, normal people. The people living small lives, telling small stories in this massive world. Now, I know Andor is eventually going to get wrapped up in bigger stuff. That will happen later. But they start out on the scale I wanted. And it's such an untapped niche in Star Wars, in the movies and the shows, at least. I'm sure there's been comics or source books or Wikipedia entries or novels or whatever that have explored this sort of not in the middle of the fighting, ground level, just trying to live day to day kind of existence under the Empire. But that hasn't happened in the Star Wars media that I have taken in, being someone who doesn't have time for the comics and the video games and the novels. So I'm really happy to see this. And Rogue One was the one that came the closest to dealing with this. And even there, it was still very much directly tied into the big picture stuff. But your standard Star Wars story is all big picture stuff. And that's not actually a knock on Star Wars. I don't think that's a fault in the Star Wars stories we've had. But I do think it's a fault that we have been exploring out from the original trilogy for as long as we have. And it took us this long just to tell a story about normal people who are just going day to day and what it's like to not even be directly under the heel of the Empire, but just to exist in its shadow. Because even the security forces in this, they're not Imperial stormtroopers. The Empire is huge. There's only so many troopers that they have. They're not sticking them on every single street corner. In certain areas, yeah, it's just going to be something that they contract out to a corporation to run security. That makes sense. And so you still get that sense of danger and oppression, and you can't trust people. You have to be careful what you say and who you say it to, but have just enough distance from the Empire that they're not physically there. But what they've done to the galaxy, what the mentality of an entity like the Empire has done to life for people, that's exactly what I wanted from this. And I got it, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy with this so far. I think all the characters are fantastic. And like, I need to say this in case I forget to say it later. Jumping to the end, like the end of the 3rd episode, towards the end, when Andor is like, he's on the speeder bike, he's got, this guy who's probably going to hook him up with the rebellion, and, he's heading off to whatever comes next. But we get these images of the people left behind, whether it be the woman who initially took him off the planet that he was born on, whether it be the one that he had a possibly romantic relationship with at some point, it was kind of hinted at, whether it be that woman's love interest that Cassian had a weird sort of confrontational thing, whether it be his friend. All these people, you get little glimpses of them as things are panning out, because That's who it's about. Just the people. Oh, that made me so happy that it gave those shots. Because that tells me that the people making this show understand exactly what the scope of this story should be. This should not be huge narrative of the grand story of Star Wars. We have those. This is something else. This is something smaller. This doesn't need the Jedi. This doesn't even need the Empire right off the bat. Ah, also, they did a really good job intercutting the flashbacks with what was going on presently. Because that can be a tough thing to do and have it flow well. And so that they were kind of mirroring things going on. So that Cassian was hooking up with this guy and escaping off this planet at the same time that we're seeing the point in the flashback where he was taken off world from the planet he was born on. In terms of mirroring those things makes the interplay of the flashback and the modern day just flow better together, allows them to build a crescendo together, and it stops the flashbacks from feeling like just a backstory info dump. So it's really well put together, and it feels like Star Wars, and it's that dirty Star Wars. This is equipment that is, futuristic and fantastical, and it works, but it's run down, and it's dirty, and it needs fixing, and nobody's bothered to clean it. That's Star Wars to me. That was honestly almost, no, I was going to say almost as much as the midichlorians. That's not true. But probably third on my list of gripes with the prequel trilogy, with Phantom Menace in particular, was how clean and neat and shiny everything was. And I understand why that was the case. It made total narrative sense. It was a time of peace, this particular world. Like the Naboo fighters, they're perfect. They're shiny. They're ceremonial. Of course they look good. But that's not Star Wars to me. That loses part of the aesthetic. That the technology is thrown together and it's functional, but it's not pretty. And again, this gives me something that I've been missing from Star Wars in terms of the smaller scale stories, but it also brings back so much stuff that I enjoy and don't always get from this show, from this series, from this franchise. And I'm getting it right now. And the acting is great. Everybody's good. I really gotta love I actually don't need him to show up again. I'll be okay if we never see him again. But the Weasley, almost idealistic sort of junior commander of the security forces, where he's like, no, we're going to do this because someone took on our men and it's the thing we need to do. But he's also kind of he's not charismatic, and he's kind of a coward, and he probably thinks he's an idealist, but he's just kind of an idiot. That tracks. That makes sense in that kind of chain of command. Somebody who probably wishes he was in the military proper, but this was the best he could get. And I loved his commander, who really only had one scene, but I loved him, where he's like, oh, these two officers got killed. Oh, I met one of them. Absolute idiot. Very unpleasant person. They probably brought this on themselves. No need to investigate. And the thing is, it's not even necessarily like a corrupt thing. It's like he's being super pragmatic. He's just looking at things like, look, the circumstances under which this happened, all of it makes us look bad. This is not that big a loss in terms of what it cost us. It's not worth looking into. It's not worth pouring the resources into. Let it go. But then he leaves in command, this little weasel turd. who's on a high horse, and then gets enabled by this sergeant, who probably, the vibe I get off him is that he did have legit military experience, and he kind of wishes things in this security outfit were run the way the military was, and it's playing into the insecurities of this guy. Again, the character dynamics are really good. And like, I'm spending a lot of time talking about what is effectively one of the antagonists, but like, that's exemplary of the kinds of character dynamics that are in play across the entire thing. There wasn't a single character I didn't like, or I didn't enjoy in a scene, or I felt there's no need for them to be there. Everybody either brought something to the table or felt so organic to the circumstances and the place and the other characters around them that, like, awesome. Have them all. This is great. It's tough when they drop 3 episodes at a go, and I was annoyed by that. That's part of why this is late. But admittedly, I do get why they did it, given that it effectively serves as a 3-episode trilogy to get Cassian off that planet, but to not rush that, to give us a sense of the life he's been living, of the people around him, and again, how it impacts them, because this is a story about the smaller people, so we can't forget that they matter too. So I totally get why they dropped these 3 episodes. It was the right thing to do, as much of a pain in the butt as it was for me in terms of trying to schedule watching and now talking about the thing. And it does complicate talking about it, because when I've got 3 episodes worth of stuff to talk about, there's a lot I'm not going to think to bring up. It'll be easier going episode by episode, because if I'm just talking about a 40-minute episode at a go, I can really narrow down my talking points. Here, I'm kind of scattershot all over the place, or just focusing on a couple of highlights, because so much of this is good, but it's too much to try and go blow for blow in. I'm just really happy right now. Andor, the first 3 episodes. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Are you as happy as I am? Are you not? It's okay to disagree with me, for the record. But even if you don't want to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, they help me out. Patreon's what pays the bills and keeps this whole operation up and running. This is, in fact, my living. But even if you can't, it's okay, because what I want you to really remember is that we try and take a relaxed attitude around here. So you can just come on back next time you need a break.
Time to give my thanks to my highest supporting patrons. That would include Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Theotha Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabi Likes the Poodle, Zach, Idolin, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Adam RDL Taylor, Shane Ross, Shaylee Gourlay, Brendan LaRose, and TT. If you want your name said while these guys try and distract me, consider looking at the rewards of my Patreon.